Hello, and welcome back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Today we are continuing our journey out west with a ride on Amtrak's Pennsylvanian from here through the Appalachian Mountains to Pittsburgh. Harrisburg Transportation Center is the western terminus for the Keystone corridor in addition to serving Amtrak's Pennsylvanian. The transit center also sees intercity bus services from Greyhound and Fullington Trailways, plus the local capital area transit bus network. The station, although smaller than most, has a total of 8 tracks across 4 island platforms, although really only 2 or 3 of those tracks are regularly used. Waiting for departure in the foreground is Pennsylvanian Train 42, the southbound counterpart to our Train 43 out to Pittsburgh. Train 42 is led by GEP 42DC number 46, adorned in Amtrak's 50th anniversary livery. On the next track over is the train that brought us here, Amtrak Keystone number 663. If you missed that video, click the link in the top right or in the description below to check it out. Right as the clock hits 1:05 p.m., Train 42 departs, continuing its ride back to New York City. The transit center in Harrisburg is a quaint and very homely station. Built back in 1887 by the Pennsylvania Railroad and then rebuilt in 1905 after a serious fire, the station has seen very little change over the years. The interior features a row of white columns, a multitude of chandeliers, and a beautiful tiled floor. The station hall features a poster board about the history and potential future of the station building, describing the expansion from a small building to a full-fledged station house. The station was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1975 and is also a National Historic Landmark. Just beyond the main hall, the environment changes a bit, but off in the corner is an interactive Christmas train. As much as I wanted it to work, pushing the comically large button illuminated the cityscape, but the train didn't move an inch. That being said, it was the middle of summer at the time of filming, and why this display was still up in late June is beyond me. The real waiting area is housed in the hallway out above the tracks. Out here are benches along the walls in the center of the space, with ticket machines and information screens every few feet. The plaque for the National Historic Landmark can also be found here, listing the Harrisburg station and train shed as historic landmarks as of 1983. While we wait for our train, let's take a look at our route for this afternoon. Our journey begins heading northwest out of Harrisburg, following the Susquehanna River into the Appalachian Mountains. The mountains guide our train through the twists and turns, carving through the valleys past Lewistown, Huntington, and Tipton. Past Altoona, our train rounds the world-famous Horseshoe curve, continuing on past Crescent, Johnstown, and Greensburg. Our train then reaches the outskirts of Pittsburgh, briefly grazing the Monongahela River before breaking off to wrap around the city center to arrive at Pittsburgh's Union Station. We'll cover a total of 249 miles across Pennsylvania today, with a travel time of 5 hours and 23 minutes. The wait in the station isn't super comfortable on the wooden benches, but fortunately our train soon arrives and we can head down to track level. Making our way towards the end of the train, we can hop in line and climb aboard. For the first time on our travels across the Northeast, our coach is an Amfleet 2, not an Amfleet 1. Amfleet 2s were designed for Amtrak's long-distance single-level routes and feature larger windows and more legroom. They were also the last intercity coaches built by Bud. Seating on Amfleet 2s is amazing. There might as well not be a seat in front with how much legroom there is. Even at 6'3", I have more than enough space to stretch out my legs fully, just barely reaching under the next seat. With this extra legroom comes a footrest like you'd find in business class on the Northeast Corridor, which folds down by pressing the lever to the side of the seat back. The seatback pocket is about the same size as the rest of Amtrak's rolling stock and holds the safety information card for our Amfleet 2 coach. The tray table folds down from the seat in front and can extend rather far to bridge the canyon between the seats. Above each row are 2 lights activated by the buttons in between. 2 outlets are located on the wall below the windows. The coaches also include window shades that can slide back and forth to block out the sun if needed. The Amfleet 2 seats include 2 methods of adjustment instead of the usual one. The upper button reclines the seat back like on all other coaches, but the lever below is used for the leg rest located beneath the seat. Reaching beneath the seat, passengers can pull out the leg rest, which ratchets into place. The leg rest is considerably longer than I had expected and creates a comfortable relaxing or sleeping position when combined with the recline of the seat back. Pushing the lever on the side of the seat releases the latches, allowing the leg rest to fall back beneath the seat. With the intermediate smoke stop completed, the continuing passengers reboard the train and we depart Harrisburg, beginning our 5.5-hour journey through the Appalachian Mountains. A few hundred yards out of Harrisburg, the overhead electrification comes to an end as we transition out of Amtrak territory and onto the Norfolk Southern Main Line. Urban Harrisburg soon becomes lush rural Pennsylvania, the tracks lined with greenery as far as the eye can see. Our conductor came through the car to check tickets, and upon scanning ours informed me that our ticket was actually for business class, not coach. They mentioned that I could stay where we already were seated if I wanted to, or I could move up to the business class coach at the front of the train. Excited to see what could be considered business class on a long-distance train, I grabbed my belongings and headed forward. Passing through the Café Car reveals the reality of the situation. The coach at the front of the train certainly was business class, however the coach was actually an Amfleet 1, the same as seen on Northeast regional trains. The business class seats certainly aren't bad, but they're definitely not what I was expecting. There's around 12 inches between my knees in the seat back with plenty of space beneath the next seat to stretch out, however the seats are closer together than in coach. The same footrest as seen in coach is also included here, folding down from the seat back in the same manner. The seatback pocket is the same as those in coach class and includes the usual safety information card for the Amfleet 1 coach. The tray table folds down from the seatback with the same 2 lights on the ceiling above, controlled by the buttons in between. Power is the same with the 2 120-volt outlets located on the wall. Despite being called business class, these seats are actually worse than those in coach. The reduced distance between each row means less legroom, which in turn results in the footrest being unusable for taller passengers. The shorter seat pitch means that the leg rest is gone too, which means the overall comfort is reduced. Certainly not what I'd refer to as business class. What I was expecting were seats like the big leather armchairs seen on the combination business class Café Cars on corridor services. Those would have been a step up from the Amfleet 2 coach seats as they're operated in a 2x1 configuration and have much nicer cushions than the rest of the fleet. The Appalachian Mountains grow on the horizon as our train cruises along the 3-track main line, passing freight trains as we trundle onward. The rear of the train is often one of the best places to be, as the doors at the end provide an incredible view of the tracks out behind us. Altoona is our next stop, and the last stop before we reach the most beautiful section of this journey by far. A quick exchange of passengers later and we're on our way. Continuing out of Altoona, we climb back into the mountains, sneaking around Lake Altoona and the beginnings of Horseshoe Curve. Horseshoe Curve is one of the most well-known sections of track across the US, with its incredibly tight radius turn at just under 200 meters or 650 feet. The track curves at this constant radius for an impressive 220 degrees, totaling 2,375 feet of curve. The curve was first built in 1854 to reduce westbound grade through the Allegheny Mountains, with the observation park on the inside of the radius constructed soon after in 1879. Just briefly, we get a peek out over the valley and the Kittening Reservoir below. Horseshoe Curve is such a high-traveled railfanning site that Virtual Railfan has a permanent camera set up at the top of the park. Pulling up the live stream, we can get a rare and somewhat surreal view of watching our train go past while also being on it. Just around the curve is something I certainly didn't expect to see, toppled over spine cars with FedEx trailers on top. A little research reveals that these are actually remaining cars from the June 7th, 2021 Norfolk Southern derailment. Note that this derailment happened in 2021, and this video was filmed over a year later in late June of 2022. The fact that these cars are still here is astounding, but at least they're empty so no one is missing any packages. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It's totally free and it really helps support the channel. If you're so inclined, then feel free to check out the channel's Patreon. Patrons get their name in the video, access to exclusive weekly posts, and even the opportunity to vote on future videos. If those perks pique your interest, then click the link in the top right or in the description below to learn more. The gorgeous mountain views continue, our train twisting and turning through the Appalachian valleys. Bathrooms on Amfleet 1 coaches are located at the end of each car, with one regular and one accessible. The bathroom isn't really in the best shape, with toilet paper and water across the floor, certainly not business class quality. The sink does work well though, with plenty of soap, paper towels, and toilet paper. The 120-volt outlets are located beside the sink and appear to work, but who knows how well. The bathroom is, well, just that, a bathroom. It's not super fancy, but it gets the job done. That being said, a quick clean and refresh would be greatly appreciated. At this point in our journey, I was getting pretty hungry, which means it's time to head to the Café Car to grab some lunch. Amtrak offers a selection of snacks and drinks from the bar, plus a few larger options for lunch and dinner. The specific selection varies from route to route and recently changed when Amtrak revamped their cafe menus on long-distance trains across the US. From the options at hand, I went for a healthier choice, selecting the fresh Southwest salad bowl and a bag of chips. I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of the bowl. The lettuce was crisp and fresh, and the selection of chopped veggies on top made for a filling meal, helped in part by the side of sea salt chips. I wasn't expecting much when I made the choice for a salad, and for $9, I was expecting a total ripoff, but I was pleasantly surprised. Was it still a little overpriced? Yes, but it was way better value than I had first thought, so if you're looking for a lighter, healthier options, then I highly suggest the bowl. As we enjoy our lunch through the Appalachians, let's take a look at some stats about our train. Our train this afternoon is Amtrak Pennsylvanian number 43 and is powered by GE Genesis P42DC number 113. Each P42DC is powered by a GE V16 engine producing 4,200 horsepower, propelling trains to a top speed of 110 miles an hour. Amfleets are the workhorses of Amtrak's fleet, making up the majority of East Coast and Midwest trains. Built by Bud in the 1970s and 80s, Amfleets were modeled after coaches on the Metroliner EMUs operating on the Northeast Corridor. Amtrak ordered two types, the Intercity Amfleet 1 and the Long Distance Amfleet 2. Amfleet ones were built with one set of doors on either end of the car for faster loading and unloading. Amfleet ones are mainly used on shorter corridor services across the network with frequent intermediate stops. Amfleet 2s are the long-distance counterpart to the Amfleet 1. Amfleet 2s were manufactured by Bud between 1980 and 1983, with 150 cars delivered in total, although only 138 are still in service. These long-distance variants came in two configurations, Coach and Diner Light. Coach cars were outfitted with 59 passenger seats, while Diner Lights had a selection of booths plus a conductor's office. Before we left the Café Car, I grabbed a bag of M&Ms and a can of Coke. The can of Coke was complimentary, a perk of traveling in business class, but I had to pay for the M&Ms. Passing one of the many sidings along the way, I spotted one of Norfolk Southern's heritage units, NS 8099, painted in the Southern Railway livery. Southern Railway was the predecessor to Norfolk Southern, operating between 1894 and 1982. The railway operated with a golden green paint scheme, and Norfolk Southern honors their lineage with this locomotive. So after a full 5 hours on the Pennsylvanian, a question arises: is business class really worth it? In my opinion, no. The main advantage of business class comes from larger seats and seat reservations, but with an Amfleet 1 business coach, business class ends up being worse than coach. The seats get smaller, and notably there aren't any seat reservations despite that being an advertised amenity, which is two of the largest benefits to business class down the drain. The only other pluses are complimentary beverages and a 25% reward bonus, but that's hardly worth the almost 50% price increase. If you do end up with business class on a long-distance intercity train, then I recommend taking a seat in coach, as you'll be much more comfortable than in business class. The final few miles of the journey are fairly uneventful, and we soon reach the outskirts of Pittsburgh. Our run into Pittsburgh city center runs parallel to the MLK Jr. East Busway, one of the key arteries of public transit across the city. Along the busway, buses can stop at stations much like light rail, but then transition to regular street running after exiting the busway. It's a great system, but in my personal opinion, a light rail line here would be a much better investment. After just over 5 hours and 30 minutes, the first sign of Pittsburgh Penn Station filled the window, and it's not long before our train comes to a stop at the end of the line for the Pennsylvanian. Grabbing our belongings, we head down the car and disembark into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For the first time today, we're able to take a look at the locomotive that brought us here. P42DC number 113 took the lead today, trailed by a single CAF baggage car with 6 Amfleets in tow. A few tracks over is an Ohio Central business car named Sugarcreek. The car was manufactured by Bud for the Missouri Pacific Railroad as number 611. The coach was delivered in September of 1949 as a lightweight sleeper and was used on the Colorado Eagle. In 1971, the car was rebuilt to heavyweight business car number 11. In the late 70s, the car was restored as the McDonald's Special number 11 and was donated to the Hocking Valley Scenic Railway on October 22nd of 1976 by none other than Ray Kroc, the man who was responsible for the rise of the fast food giant with which the car shared its name. The Hocking Valley Scenic Railway eventually sold the car in the late 80s, where it was then refurbished into the Sugarcreek car we see before us. That is only a brief history of such a beautiful car, and if anyone has any more information surrounding the coach, then please leave a comment down below. It seems that this one in particular has very few records of its past, and I would love to learn more about it, specifically about its stint with the HVSR as the McDonald's Special. Our journey onward continues with Amtrak's Capital Limited out to Chicago. We made that journey in one of Amtrak's accessible bedrooms, the largest bedroom that Amtrak has to offer. That video went live a few months back, so if you missed it, click the link in the top right or in the description below to check it out. After a completed journey and a brief look at some railroading history, it's time to bring today's video to a close. Next week, we'll be back in the air to fly from Atlanta to London Heathrow on one of Delta's Boeing 767s. If you're new around here, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. It's totally free and it really helps support the channel. There's a lot more incredible content on the way, so stick around if you want to see more. I also want to give a huge shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. If you too want your name in the video or just want to support the channel in more ways than one, then head on over to the Patreon link in the description below. But anyways, that's all I have for today. Thanks for riding with me, and I'll see you in the next one.